You know, Spoo, playtime's never been so dangerous.
We're disappointing.
Today on the show.
Happy Friday, guys! Today we're going to look back over our childhood and pick out some of the worst toys ever made.
We might even go a little bit further back to some of the classic toys that... Why would they even want to produce
what were they
these?
Thinking? So these are
it was a different age back then.
Oh, yes, it was. Now, these are toys that either just were expected to do big things and just failed miserably.
They came after cartoon shows in the 80s.
Which, let's face it, back then they made video games and cartoons based off of everything.
Yes.
And sometimes they worked and sometimes they just didn't. I mean, and other ones, they hurt people, or they just were just ridiculously bad ideas from the get-go. Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
And we're not talking about light bright.
We're not talking about light bright.
Oh, no.
So, Spoo, give me a really disappointing toy.
Well, how about one that started off as a good thing, but then turned into a bad thing? And I'm talking about the Cabbage Patch Kids, actually.
Oh, yeah?
The snack time toy, or the snack time kids here, rather. Of course, the Cabbage Patch Kids, anybody that was around during that age, they came out in 1983. They were the huge hit of that time.
I saw plenty of fistfights over Cabbage Patch Kids when I was growing up.
It was like Cabbage Patch, then it was Beanie Babies, and then Pokemon I guess would be the closest thing to that now. I mean, we don't really have a big toy nowadays.
Yeah, we haven't had a big toy.
But back then, that was all the rage. Well, then, a little while later, around 1996, they came out with the Cabbage Patch Snack Time Kids. Now, this was a line that came out where you could actually feed the Cabbage Patch Kid. It had a set of metal rollers behind the lips, so that you would actually push the food in, and it would roll in and go down.
That kind of like what happened.
You saw
where that went on Wednesday, right? With rollers.
Yes. Well, kind of the same premise here. A lot of cases of hair or fingers getting stuck in the mouth, and pain would ensue. So they were released in 96, and then just a year later, January of 97, not even a year later, 97, they were pulled off the shelf.
So I can just see that conversation with an exec behind a table. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's going to make a lot of money. And 6 months later,
bring those back out.
Absolutely. What were you thinking? It's killing people. It's hurting babies.
Cannibalistic Cabbage Patch Kids.
Oh my goodness.
What do you got? Oh,
I have got the classic.
I have a personal vendetta with this thing.
This thing made it so no other toy could fire a real projectile.
You guys remember when Empire Strikes Back was coming out, and they released the toys were coming out and everything, and on the back it had this ad for you can order Boba Fett, this new awesome character that's going to be featured in Empire Strikes Back, including firing missile.
He could fire his
but then we never
got it.
We never got the firing missile.
This is why.
This is why.
The Battlestar Galactica Coronal Viper. Ever wonder why a toy with a piece smaller than a baseball has a choke warning on it? There you go. That's why. The Viper fired missiles, which was a thing that that toys did back in those days, try to get that real action feel.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, a 4-year-old and choked
and died.
So it was recalled. Mattel was sued.
I mean, the show even got hit for
the
that.
show got hit
even though it had nothing to do with it. The
Mattel produced it, but the show even took a hit for it. But so now that's one of the reasons why there's warnings on everything that's small, potential choking hazard.
Yeah,
because of that toy. You go.
Started it all. So, Dee, what's your least favorite part of flying?
Oh, going through security checkpoints. It's boring.
Really? You don't enjoy the security checkpoints at the airport?
Yeah, last time I checked, I don't enjoy cavity searches.
So you mean you wouldn't want to play with a airport security playset?
Now with TSA approved body scanners.
Oh, that's right. This was released in Germany. Oh, I can't talk today. What else is new? Like the last 2 weeks, it's just been stutter. But yes, perhaps as a way of helping with the delicate task of explaining to children why they have to remove their shoes in the pre-9/11 airport security. Germany's Playmobil introduced the security checkpoint playset, and it was priced at just over $50.
That's not that bad, really.
Shockingly enough, very few people bought it, so it was discontinued.
I wonder why.
Now, the ironic thing is, as dumb of a toy as this is, I actually had some of the Playmobil figures back in the day. Not the checkpoint ones, but some of those figures. But ironically enough, if you can actually find a good condition, you've got a thing on your shoulder here. If you can find a good condition one nowadays, it actually sells for about $100 on Amazon.
So it came with
doubles the cost of this toy that nobody
bought. So it actually has its companion piece too, that was never released. The back room cavity search playset. Yeah, you can see why that never got taken off. Anyway,
too bad we don't have that now, and you can actually get like the full body scan.
You pass it through, and there's an X-ray, and So how about a toy that's so bad it could cause cancer?
Hey, who doesn't love that?
Dangerous toys are a thing in the past, but in 2007, just 10 years ago, the CSI Fingerprint Examination Kit came out. And it contained asbestos.
I remember this.
Oh my God! So you're dusting your fingerprints. I'm doing the CSI thing.
What child? What parent doesn't want to buy a toy for their kid? Let me just get dust everywhere.
Yeah, it's
going to be great.
It's like glitter. It glitters everywhere. Yeah. I'm dusting my fingerprints on mom and dad for later. Oh, and then later on he has mesothelioma. That word.
Mesothelioma.
That word right there. Because he inhaled the asbestos fibers. Yeah, I can see why that one got recalled real quick.
Really? I can't imagine why at all. How about action? Of course, every good movie needs action figures.
It has to have good action figures.
Well, sometimes even the bad ones get action figures. Battlefield Earth had a series of action figures that came along with it, and guess what? Nobody bought them.
Imagine that, because it was a horrible movie.
Who doesn't want Scientology action happening in your playroom?
That was hands down, I think, worst movie John Travolta has ever done.
Horribly bad. It was
horribly wrong.
Well, and if it was, the whole thing was,
the thought process of it was a good thought process.
Well, it was a movie. The movie was about Scientology. Mm-hmm. That's a known thing. It was mainly undertones and stuff like that, but. It was based on the book that was actually written by L. Ron Hubbard, of course, the founder of Scientology. And, the whole thing is just one giant metaphor for that. So, the movie flopped.
Imagine.
And subsequently, so did the toys.
How much money did they lose?
Oh, man.
Who manufactured those?
I don't know if this is even on here. It was put out by...
Trendmaster.
Let's see.
Yep, it's put out by Trendmaster.
Trendmaster. No. This is great. The Washington Post. Okay, the Washington Post actually put a quote out about the movie that said, quote, "A million monkeys with a million crayons would be hard-pressed in a million years to create anything as cretinous as Battlefield Earth."
That's a burn. You need some cream for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun with your figures.
Yeah, have fun with those figures.
Here's your John Travolta figure. Yeah. Go run and play.
Hey, magnets, Shpoo, they bring things together, right? Mm-hmm. You know what happens if kids swallow them? Their intestines get pinched.
Yeah, absolutely.
So magnetics was a thing. Building your fantastic play sets with magnets.
I remember magnets.
The problem is they were fragile pieces of plastic, guys, and they would break open. And there's this little silver thing. And you know what 3- and 4-year-olds love to do?
Put things in their mouth.
And you know what happens when they put 3 or 4 of them in their mouth? Oh. Magnets get stuck together. So they would close off people's esophaguses. They would compound their intestinal tract. So many people complained that they basically withdrew them within a few months. In one case, a 10-year-old But again, I'm not speaking to anybody's age, but a 10-year-old suffered life-threatening intestinal injuries after he ingested several of the magnets. I have to say that Mom and Dad did not do a good job of supervising, but that's for another show.
Sure. So you guys remember last week we actually pointed out something specific up here on the shelf. If you remember what that was with the karate action, Mr. Chuck Norris himself.
Please do not appear in the studio and roundhouse kick
Mr.
us.
Norris, with all due respect, as much as I am a fan of yours, your line of work, not always the best. And back in the 80s, there was a mini-series that ran that was called Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos. And Kenner released figures from this little mini-series here. The cartoon tried to capitalize on the ninja craze of the mid-'80s, but Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos is remembered more for its unintentional comedy. Yeah. They released, what was it, 5 figures, I believe? It was Chuck Norris in 3 different uniforms, which I have 2 of those. Chemo, Reed Smith, which was Chuck's apprentice, Ninja Serpent, Ninja Warrior, Super Ninja, which was Claw's right-hand claw, the big bad guy for it, who never got released.
No.
They never released him as a toy. And Tabe, a champion sumo wrestler. They released 1 vehicle, the Karate Corvette. There was no Claw released in the assortment of figures. Perhaps had they decided to offer him in Series 2 in a full season, if a full season of the animated program was ever offered. But that was not in the cards. Only 5 episodes ever aired.
Now again, please, Mr. Norris, we understand that the world revolves.
I still have 2 of those figures.
The world
today,
does actually revolve around you, but that was a colossal flop.
Yes, it was.
So we talked about some asbestos. What about lead? We don't want to. We don't eat. Nobody eats lead, right?
That's no good.
But Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus herself, had Disney put out the Hannah Montana Pop Star card game. The problem?
There was lead.
There was lead in the cards.
Oh, hey! That's good and healthy for you.
That may have explained anyway. But yeah, 35% of all the toys in that series had lead. So, not just a little bit of lead, but 75 times the appropriate amount of lead.
Oh my.
So, you lick it and you're on the short bus.
Which, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, if you're licking Hannah Montana cards, you may be on the short bus to begin with. But hey, you remember the Easy Bake Oven?
I do remember the Easy Bake Oven. The little light bulb that got insanely friggin' hot.
It was released by Kenner back in 1963, and of course it loaded it on the side, right? Well, did you know that in 2006, so just 11 years ago, that they re-released the Easy Bake Oven? But they changed it this time around to where you would actually load it into the front like a real oven. Well, the problem with that is it made the heat a little more accessible for whenever you're trying to reach in and get your food out. So,
what is that flavorful smell?
5 injuries were reported, and just 1 year after its release, the Easy Bake Oven version 2 was recalled.
What's that smell? Oh, it's Jimmy's fingers. It's Jimmy's fingers.
Yeah. Jimmy!
How about one that will actually make you glow? That's right.
Oh, man.
That's right. And this has got to be from the 50s. I couldn't find an exact date, 50s or 60s.
Late 50s, early 60s.
But the U-238, that is uranium U-238, Atomic Energy Lab.
Including real uranium.
Like, we had just split the atom, guys. We had just bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima using uranium and plutonium, but it is totally safe for kids to play with.
Absolutely.
We leveled 2 cities in Japan. Timmy, what do you want today? I want that new uranium lab. Now available for all evil world dominators at your local convenience store.
I wonder how much one of those is going for nowadays.
I doubt you can actually find one nowadays.
Somebody out there has one. Somebody.
Well, you know
has uranium in their home in a box in the attic somewhere that they don't even know.
We're gonna look. You just
okay.
Just do your thing.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna talk about The American Girl line of dolls, that they debuted back in 1986. Now they kind of changed the game when it came to for girls to play with, because they intentionally they wanted to depict figures of different ethnicities, and oh my God, you can still buy that for about $400.
It's pre-owned though.
So
it doesn't matter. Uranium has a half-life of like 20,000 years.
Oh, good Lord. Anyway, I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either.
I was totally not expecting that.
I was 100% sure that the government probably would have pulled all
every
of
single
that
one of them.
away.
Yeah. But yes, okay, so the American Girl line of dolls, they depicted various ethnicities and attributes that were instantly popular with children and collectors. They had books released off of them, the clothing line was released, various accessories. Every one of them went with excellent sales. Until a doll by the name of Gwen Thompson came out.
Okay.
Gwen's unique attribute was that she was homeless and lived in a car with her mother. Have fun with that at Playtime, kids.
That's kind of depressing.
I know, right? Yeah.
I mean, I was riding the high off of the uranium, and you just brought it way down.
Now, this is a CNBC article that I'm getting this from here, and they go on to say that it's hard to say who the intended target audience for this doll was, but it wasn't on store shelves long enough for anyone to find out. Just as she was pulled from the shelves after just a couple of months.
Yeah, and whoever developed that and got the okay was pulled from his office, too.
I mean, I guess I see where they were going there. I mean, telling people it's okay to be homeless. I mean, sure, yeah, it happens, unfortunately, but I mean, wow, the irony of that. Hey, let's go buy this toy for my entitled child who gets nice things like dolls, and here, play with this homeless girl that lives in a car.
Probably not a good car. Maybe a station wagon.
It's just such a weird thing. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, because again, it does happen, and it's certainly not the child's fault.
No, it's not.
It's just such a weird.
It's a weird. Yeah, like you gotta wonder who the toy exec was that signed off on that. It's like, well, that's an amazing.
Well,
idea.
let's see. We've released the African American doll. I mean, that's a new thing for us. I mean, that's a big thing back then, So we've released a Mexican doll, and we've released this a doll from the Middle East, and we've.
Let's do a homeless.
We
Why
haven't
not?
done homeless yet. That'll sell. That'll be the next big thing.
Here's your pink slip.
No one should ever say, this homeless girl will be the next big thing.
No. Not unless maybe she's on American's Got Talent or American Idol. That would be okay.
Let's not glamorize the homelessness.
But if they're really talented...
Let's move on.
I couldn't pick... I had to pick one to be my top one. But there were two that were really close. This next one I actually played with, and I actually speared...
I still have a set somewhere.
I speared a kid's foot with it back when I was like 7 or 8. Lawn darts, or as we used to call them, jarts.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a giant dart, that like little darts you would play indoors, except these things were like that big. They had a weighted end on them and a 6-inch metal spike.
Yeah.
You would chuck them in the air, hoping to land inside this hula hoop. I think we threw them at each other more.
Sometimes they landed in people's skulls.
Like I said, I pierced a kid's foot with it.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, that totally happened.
The friendly fire game, let's see, seemed obviously dangerous. Part of throwing the weighted spike in the air and seeing where it lands seemed safe. It's like friendly fire, the game, the force, the original steel-tipped lawn dart was estimated 23,000 pounds.
Oh, man.
20,000 pounds per square inch on the tip of this needle. Yeah, you could go through the hood of a car.
Yeah, because it only takes what? I want to say it's only something like
10 or 12 psi.
12 pounds of pressure to penetrate the skull.
Yeah, because that's... Now, Jimmy, we're not letting you go to the zoo today, Jimmy, but we did get you the jarts.
I know you're just using Jimmy as just a common child name, but the fact you said we're not letting you go to the zoo today,
it's gonna be.
You're not gonna go see the alligators today, Jimmy.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go back a few weeks.
Go back and watch what you may have missed. Yeah. Are you gonna talk about that one?
That's going to be my last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've only got one more here, and it goes back to talking about how back in the 80s, how everything had its own cartoon or its own video game based around it. Well, one of the best comedies ever made, Police Academy.
Oh, the series, I liked it. Yeah. For at least the first three.
You may not remember, but there was a short-lived cartoon show based off of Police Academy, and it was god-awful.
It was horrible.
I mean, none of the characters looked like the characters, It was ridiculous.
It was a train wreck, guys.
Yes, it was a train wreck. Well, there was a toy line that was released off of this as well. Believe it or not, the animated series actually had 65 episode run.
Why is this not?
It was
why
around
is
for a
this
while,
not
but
on,
it was
like,
just terrible.
YouTube, or I bet you we can find it on YouTube.
Probably, maybe, I don't know. But many of the major characters of the show were then made into toys. The toy line included officers, of course, Mahoney. You had Tackleberry. You had Captain Harris. You had Hightower. You had Officer Thomas House Conklin, former antagonist turned police officer Zed. You've got, a whole bunch of people, but look at these things.
Now, those don't look like the characters from the movie. Well, maybe that one guy.
Zed, you can tell that that's Zed. You can tell that that's Tackleberry. But either way, the toys flopped. And
cartoon flop.
The cartoon was god awful and should not have been on for as long as it was, but it kind of goes down in the history of just the crap that came out when we were kids.
Yeah. I'm gonna finish off with
Now you should have finished off with the uranium.
I should have finished off with uranium, but that is a little more long term dangerous. I'm in for the quick kill.
Yeah.
And while jarts are definitely top of the list, how about we let kids play with liquid glass?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm saying that this is probably in the 50s. There was a thing called Gilbert's glass blowing set for kids. So basically, it came with a little cylinder of pressurized gas, so you could heat the end of the glass tube up, and then you would blow. And it would expand, and you would... It's a horrible idea all the way around.
Have you ever melted a straw and had the plastic drip on your hand or something like that?
That's burning hot.
How horribly painful that is. Imagine that times 1,000.
Because that's glass.
That's glass. Except when it hits your hand and then it cools, and then you've got glass fused into your skin.
It's the new fire challenge.
No. I will not be responsible. Do not try that at home.
Try that at home.
No.
Do not.
I will not be responsible for that.
Because that's what happened. I guarantee you, kids back in the 50s were playing with these in their living rooms. Drapes were catching on fire. Shag carpets were catching on. The dog probably caught on fire.
Yeah.
This was not a good idea whatsoever.
Yes. 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
The Tommy heat gun that came with it had to melt it up to 1,000 degrees. So there you go.
Have fun with that.
That's my top flop.
And I think that's probably a good stopping point.
Yeah.
And it's a good that not just for this episode, but for the toy companies as well.
Yeah, I'm glad they're no longer.
No more 1,000-degree playthings.
Oh, so hey. Follow us on our social media platforms. They are the Facebook, the Instagram, and the Twitter.
Yeah. Make sure you hit push notifications on all of those and on YouTube as well. While you're here, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a single thing that we put out there every Monday through Friday and sometimes on Saturday.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen on the weekends, guys.
So we'll be back next week, and until then, you guys...
Hi, I'm Mary from Idaho. Here's your Russian clip of the day. Проще позвонить, чем у кого-то занимать. 8 800 555 555.